The history of the world in 5 minutes. There came a time in human history when the monkey realized that if he hit these two rocks together, it would spark a forest fire. After the fire dies down, he is left with a rather nice, heat and light-emitting campfire. With this innovation, man turned from darkened monkeys to enlightened cavemen. Then, man realized that if he took a rock and put it on the end of a stick, he would have a hammer, which he could use to make more hammers. Interesting concept. With his new hammers, he fashioned something that rolled, which is much easier than pushing. Then man realized it was a lot easier to find food if you knew where you put it. So, that's how they invented agriculture. Another great innovation was language. Language revolutionized school. Schools grew from their usual counting wings to include a new language wing. Some kid who was tired of getting yelled at for talking in class started writing stuff down and passing notes. Hammurabi, tired of living in a lawless society, used this new innovation to write Hammurabi's Code, the world's first set of laws, which changed people's thinking from, "If you do something to me, I will kill you," to, "If you do one of these 282 things, I will kill you." A few years later, a designer in Giza said, "I see pyramids everywhere." And it was so. With the help of aliens and desert fairies, the ancient Egyptians built the largest stone structures in history. Less than a millennium later, mathematicians from all over Greece converged upon Athens to show their support for the Pythagorean Theorem Act, which stated all right triangles must conform to a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Greece thrived for a few centuries and basically improved every invention man had ever made. And then, on May 3rd, 325 BCE, Rome was built. Rome employed the barbarians of Europe and turned them into an unstoppable, hard-to-stop military machine. They conquered the world, except for China, but it doesn't count. During its reign, controversy about the death penalty exploded after the execution of the alleged Son of God. Shortly afterwards comes a time of peace and prosperity called Pax Romana. It was just like the 50s, except there was a lot less sex. Then Rome fell, plunging the world into the Dark Ages. Luckily, man still had his fire. This brings us to a chapter in school that always gets skipped. The time before 1066 when nothing really happened. And it was like 500 years, too. People were born. People died. That was about it. This period became known as the what period? The what period ended in 1066 when Norman mania swept across England as William the Conqueror did what he did best: conquer. In China, scientists developed gunpowder, banking, paper money, and advanced medicine, but since it isn't Western, it doesn't count. Later on, King John was forced to sign the Magna Carta, which said no man is above the law. And at last, Lady Democracy had awoken, stretched her arms, only to yawn, hit the snooze button, and fall back asleep for another 500 years. At about this time, a deadly plague killed 1 in 3 Europeans. Look at the bright side. I guess 2 and 3 lived. As the plague went away, Gutenberg, in his attempt to dumb down reading, prints the Gutenberg Bible, and becomes the first book on the New York Times bestseller list. Columbus, while looking at a map in the back of Gutenberg Bible, realized it would be a lot faster to just go across the Atlantic instead of going all the way around Africa. He came back to Portugal and said, "Well, I was just about to the East Indies, and I accidentally ran into another continent, and I couldn't get around it. Although it does look rather stealable from those natives." And thus humans began settling North and South America. Native Americans don't count. A century went by. People went there. Wars were fought. Your usual. But all other events bow down to the relatively major defeat of the English army at Yorktown, giving birth to the USA, the most powerful superpower the world has ever known. Some years passed. The U.S. won some wars, but Abraham Lincoln was right. A house divided against itself cannot stand. So the Union brought in a wrecking ball, destroyed the house, and built a new one. The world went through some tough times. In Germany, a man with a somewhat comical black mustache came to power. But he wasn't funny. He was just mean. But the Allies opened up a can of whoop-ass on him and his panzers. Oh, and computers were invented. And there you have it, the history of the world. What the?
And now, for your enjoyment, the Canadian National Anthem.